Hello, class. This week we are going to be discussing climate change as a public health issue. First, we're going to cover some background information about the composition of the atmosphere and what climate change is. Then, we'll talk about the effects it has on health, and finally, solutions to adapt and mitigate. The atmosphere is made of air and variable gases such as nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. What is climate? Climate refers to the long-term global average of temperature, humidity, and rainfall patterns over seasons, years, or decades. Is there a difference between global warming and climate change? Yes. People often use these terms interchangeably, yet trigger very different emotional responses. Global warming is the long-term heating of Earth's climate system due to human activities, particularly fossil fuels. Climate change is a long-term change in the average weather patterns that have come to define Earth's local, regional, and global climates. What is the greenhouse effect? The greenhouse effect is a process by which CO2 and H2O particles in the atmosphere delay escape of long-wave radiation from the sun. This process effectively keeps our planet at a livable temperature. Excessive amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has delayed the escape of long-wave radiation to be trapped, increasing our temperature, creating the enhanced greenhouse effect. The increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere occurs in two ways: naturally induced and human-induced carbon fluxes. Natural carbon emissions are a result of interactions between the land and atmosphere, as well as the ocean and the atmosphere. Human-induced carbon fluxes are the result of burning fossil fuels, transportation, electricity and heat, and industrialized agriculture. Climate change and human health. Climate change negatively impacts human health in four main areas: rising temperatures, extreme weather events, rising water levels, and increasing carbon dioxide levels. The health effects of climate change occur at the individual, family, and community levels. Extreme weather events caused by climate change, such as hurricanes and wildfires, can cause an increase in levels of anxiety and PTSD in people who are at risk for mental illness, but also those with no history of it. The disruption of school and community resources impacts families' physical, mental, and academic development. Children who were displaced from Hurricane Katrina demonstrated worse academic performance, school attendance, behavioral issues, and mental health. Trauma resulting from natural disasters tend to traumatize populations of people all at once. This can result in epidemics of survivor guilt and PTSD symptoms. Climate change threatens food production, quality, prices, and distribution systems. Food insecurity increases alongside food prices. When food prices rise, people turn to nutrient-poor but calorie-dense foods. This causes hunger and malnutrition, which can lead to obesity. The nutritional value of some food is projected to decline because of increased amounts of atmospheric CO2, is associated with decreased plant nitrogen and therefore plant protein concentration. Crop yields are expected to decline because of the combined effects of changes in rainfall, severe weather events, and increasing weeds and pests. People with specific dietary patterns will experience shortages of key foods. According to the United Nations definition, food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Sustainable food systems. Our food and agriculture systems both contribute to and are adversely impacted by climate change. Industrialized agriculture uses large amounts of herbicides and pesticides that contribute to illness and water contamination. Local, sustainable food systems and healthier diets offer important health, climate, and environmental benefits. These benefits include greater access to fresh fruits and vegetables, reduced water, pesticide, and fertilizer use, topsoil protection, and resilience in times of crisis. Reducing food waste can also reduce food insecurity. Eating less meat reduces the risk of heart disease and cancer, while also reducing methane emissions, water contamination, deforestation, and antibiotic resistance. According to a 2018 study conducted at the University of Oxford, shifting to a plant-based diet can reduce your carbon footprint up to 73%. Extreme heat and weather events. Climate change has steadily increased Earth's temperature that contributes to shifts in extreme weather events such as drought, extreme heat, heavy rainfall, hurricanes, tornadoes, and wildfires. Extreme heat can also cause health-related conditions such as heat stroke, which if not treated properly can cause death or permanent disability. Children are more vulnerable to heat stress, especially under the age of 1. Heat illness is the leading cause of death and disability among high school athletes. Extreme heat increases the risk of preterm birth, low birth weight, and infant mortality. Drought and floods are associated with deficient access to safe and reliable water, increasing the risk of dehydration and waterborne illnesses. Research has shown that there are associations between diarrheal diseases and temperature, heavy rainfall, flooding, and drought. Examples of diarrheal-related illnesses are E. coli, salmonella, cholera, and hepatitis. Key climate factors associated with risks of exposure to dangerous pathogens happen in both freshwater, marine recreational waters, and drinking water. Climate change directly leads to an increased concentration of ground-level ozone and air pollution matter. Ground-level ozone is associated with many health problems, including diminished lung function, increased emergency department visits for asthma, and increases in premature death. Warmer seasonal air temperatures can contribute to higher pollen concentrations and longer pollen seasons, causing more severe and frequent allergic reactions. Changes in rainfall and temperature can also negatively impact the quality of air inside. Indoor air quality problems include the growth of indoor fungi and molds, increasing respiratory and asthma-related conditions. A vector is any organism that can transmit a pathogen or infectious agent from one host to another. An example of a vector-borne disease related to climate change is Lyme disease. The development and survival of ticks, their hosts, and bacterium are all strongly influenced by climatic factors, especially temperature, precipitation, and humidity. Reported cases of Lyme disease are most common in 5 to 9-year-old boys. Climate change and health equity. The health risks and impacts of climate change are not equally distributed across people, communities, or nations. Vulnerable populations include children, pregnant women, the elderly, those with pre-existing health conditions, people in poor living and work conditions, low-income communities, and developing countries. Vulnerability to specific impacts of climate change will be the most severe when and where they are felt together, with stresses from other sources. External sources can include poverty, unequal access to resources, food security, environmental degradation, and risk from natural hazards. In 2009, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention created the Climate and Health Program. The program is centered around the Building Resistance Against Climate Effects, or BRACE framework. Building Resistance Against Climate Effects incorporates atmospheric data and climate projections into public health planning and response activities. This 5-step process is used to develop strategies to help communities prepare a coordinated response to the health effects of a changing climate. The CDC's Climate Ready States and Cities Initiative, or CRSCI, follows the BRACE framework to help minimize population health impacts. The CRSCI has awarded annual grants ranging from $100,000 to $250,000 to public health departments. The state grantees are Arizona, California, Montana, New Hampshire, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Michigan. The city grantees are New York City and San Francisco. On Earth Day in 2016, the Paris Agreement was signed at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The goal of the agreement is to keep global average temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. To this date, 189 parties of 197 have status of ratification. All parties that signed promised to put forward their best efforts through national determined contributions. They must report regularly on their emissions and on their implementation efforts. Coronavirus's impact on climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions have plunged due to the rapid decline of travel and economic activity. In the United States, air traffic has dropped 40%, and in China, carbon emissions have decreased by 25%. Although the coronavirus has had a positive impact on greenhouse gas emissions, it is not an end-all solution and proposes some of its own problems. In the United States, there has been a surge in solid medical waste, which puts waste collection workers at risk. Also, several states have banned the use of reusable bags due to the fear of contamination. At this time, I would like you to please pause this video and click the link at the bottom of the slide on coronavirus impact on climate change to learn more and how the two are interconnected. Thank you, and I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I did. Next, we will discuss the varying views internationally on climate change. The Pew Research Center's Spring 2015 survey identified that people around the world are concerned about climate change, but at very different capacities. Majorities in all 40 nations polled say climate change is a serious problem. Around the globe, there are different perspectives on the immediacy of climate change. A global median of 51% say climate change is already harming people, while another 28% believe it will do so in the next few years. People in countries with high per capita levels of carbon emissions, such as China and the United States, are less intensely concerned about climate change. The threat of drought was recorded as the most concerning across all regions. I would like to end this presentation with having you watch a short video summarizing how climate affects community health, which can be found on the conclusion page. And my questions for you all this week are: 1. Please choose one health condition that is impacted by climate change and describe how vulnerable populations may be at a higher risk. 2. Research or propose one solution to combat a specific health outcome that is relevant to climate change and your community. 3. What is something you have done or want to do to work for climate justice? Thank you.